The holidays hit me hard. I think it happens to most people. There's just this flood of cakes and cookies and snacks and candies, and this sort of year-end, don't worry about it. Just make a New Year's resolution. Come on, don't be lame. Just have some candy. Grandma made that fudge special. Eventually, all those snacks were gone, not disappearing steadily in a party so much as changing into love handles. And finally, it happened. I couldn't button my pants. Something had to be done. I jumped online and spent a good chunk of my Christmas money on a banded resistance set and a pair of cheap running shoes. To increase my odds of success, I also downloaded an app that applied game theory to fitness. Sounds fancy, right? It was pretty straightforward. You log the activities you do, like a 20-minute jog, and it would give you points. Those points led to leveling up. They also had activity-based achievements. Weightlifting badges had to do with total pounds, how big of a percentage of your body weight you managed to press over your head, that kind of thing. The achievements gave you even more points, so you could level up even faster. Basically, fellow gamers, it was the only way I was going to get my ass out of that chair and back into my jeans. I made my account, threw on a picture from the previous summer, and began dutifully logging my pathetic few first workouts. The app didn't have a lot of achievements or quests for the resistance bands. That was annoying. They were what I had, and they made me sore as hell. So I knew they were working something. But there were tons of goals for runners, and so my daily logins began to mostly focus on my jogs and, as I got more into it, sprints and high-intensity interval training. I began leveling up a lot quicker, getting random notifications of some goal achieved nearly every other day. This was just what I needed, and I became a near daily presence on the app. The app also had a social aspect, which made some sense. Despite the stereotype of lone wolf basement dweller, most kids into gaming are social through online means, if not out in the real world. Some of the best friends I've ever made came from co-op gaming, pickup groups, and goofing around in the lobby. I kept in touch with a lot of them outside of games. I even lured a few of them into joining the fitness app with me. Vihan, one of my best friends online, got just as hooked as I did. He had a full gym near his apartment, and he was built like a brick outhouse. So he was more on the weightlifting achievements track. But we were constantly on each other's profiles, hyping every logged workout a new rank. Soon, we attracted more friends and followers from the app itself. Fellow runners, lifters, and gamers joined our little circle. Things were going well. One day, I awoke to find a ton of notifications. One user had like-bombed my feed. I clicked through the account name and found the user, Holly Hoists. She was a brunette around my age with the widest, most doe-like brown eyes I'd ever seen. Wanting to encourage this new connection, I did the polite thing and scrolled down her feed, giving her the like bomb business like she'd done on my profile. Vihan still lived in Chennai at the time. As his time zone was near opposite mine, he didn't log in to see what I'd been up to until a few hours later. He had one comment for me. "Dude, that profile's a bot." I said, "No way." Holly Hoists and I had done more than exchange likes by this point. The messages she'd posted were missing the hallmarks of being a bot. There weren't too many emojis, which I don't think the app let you use emojis. There was no weird messaging about how much I should want to see her body on a webcam. And there were no sketchy links redirecting to known bad news domains like .su, the old Soviet Union domain. Most importantly, she didn't have a blank profile. The app showed how long each person had been a member, and this girl had been faithfully logging in to grind her levels with Tabatas and Hit for almost a year. I laid out my evidence to Vihan. People who are very online understand that the internet has some real strange people on it, and so this sort of assessment I gave above becomes less of an in-depth exercise in internet detectivery and more a formality. He considered my body of evidence, then said it could be a hacked account, and asked if I had reverse image searched her. I hadn't, but Vihan was already on it. Holly had uploaded a few pictures sporadically over the year or so she'd been on the site, so there was plenty to work with. He came back a few minutes later over our voice chat. His pronouncement was, "Results are inconclusive." I asked him, "What does that mean?" He said there was good news and bad news. The good news was he couldn't find those pictures posted anywhere else. The bad news was, quoting him, "No way a girl takes pics like this," and he popped one into the chat window, the one with her in the sports bra, and doesn't cross-post to anything else. I thought for a moment. Maybe she didn't have social media, I said, or her parents were on it, and she didn't want to deal with the hassle. Vihan laughed at me, told me to slow down, Turbo, and pointed out that if I was already this invested in her, I had bigger problems than her being a bot or a catfish. I made the usual sounds of dismissal. He jabbed at the sore spot a bit, and then we rolled into a game. But if I'm being honest, it was a sore point. Maybe she was a catfish. She was definitely not a bot. But maybe she was a catfish. Maybe she didn't look like any of her pictures. Maybe she was a 42-year-old man named Curtis who was on the sicko register. Gaining weight like I had and watching my brother, a year older than me, suddenly shoot up 6 inches and leave his shorter, stubbier brother looking like the melted candle version of him. Well, it got to me. We weren't twins, but looked so alike it came up a lot when people met us for the first time. But now, we looked like a before and after photo. I was clearly the before. Over the months I'd been running and logging points on the app, sure, some weight had come off, but I was nowhere near being the after photo. Then, suddenly, this girl shows up. She's got these big brown eyes and a beautiful smile, with this curl up at the edges that reminded me of the Cheshire Cat. And over our posts, she made me feel better. And that was the thing. We'd never DM'd. We'd never swapped emails. We'd never had any conversation that wasn't a hooray or a good job posted on a workout in front of the crowd of our mutuals. So what that she bombed my page and I hers? What was Vihan being such a downer about? Hell, she didn't need to be real, even though I hoped she was. But while I was thinking about that, up popped a notification on my phone from the fitness app. Like she had read my mind, Holly Hoists had DM'd me. Crazy. I clicked it open, forgetting it would show a timestamp of me immediately opening it. Not the way to play it cool. But I found a short, innocuous message. As if the timing thing weren't freaky enough, she too had been razzed by her online friends for showing so much interest in me. She wrote something like, "If you're not a bot or fake, then hi, my name's Holly. It's good to meet you." It was too coincidental. A horrible thought occurred to me. Was this Vihan pranking me? But as quickly as it surfaced, I dismissed it. My best friend could be a real a-hole, but he knew how down I'd been. No way he'd play such a joke on me. There was one way to find out, though. I messaged Holly back. What I wrote was forgettable, but it contained the usual, "Hi, how are you? This is my first name," and some small talk questions to prompt an easy response for a human, but impossible for a bot. Where was she from? How long had she been into fitness? Was she doing it for a competition or a race? Then, dropping my phone, I logged into a game and found Vihan and a couple of other friends already in game. He came over vent. "Amen. Give me a couple minutes to finish carrying this team. We'll get you in the next round." I watched as his kill count rose again. He was clearly playing, and as well as usual. I looked to my phone and saw Holly had just replied. It couldn't have been Vihan. Feeling like a genius, this girl had been put through all of our testing criteria and had passed. I opened her message. She'd made the most of my small talk questions, making a silly joke about my response and giving a funny little story about how she'd gotten into weightlifting after being wowed by Sarah Connor in Terminator 2. She asked me a few questions back, followed by what I came to think of as her signature smiley, curly brace. I got so distracted typing back a reply, I missed the current round ending and nearly missed joining in the next round. Over the next few weeks, things got better and better. First semester grades revealed that if I was the fat twin, I was at least the smart twin. My runs were becoming longer, and my pace was improving all the time. I no longer felt like someone had swung a wet sandbag into my chest after 6 miles. The scale wasn't showing dramatic loss, but I'd begun to retire certain articles of clothing that drooped and sagged. I was getting fitter, and I had a perky brunette acting as a cheerleader in my DMs all the time. Holly and I chatted several times a day. With her in mind, I took my latest progress pic. Shirtless mirror selfies are a no-go anywhere else, but on the fitness app they were normal, even expected. I still didn't love the way I looked, but I figured why not, and took one. Then, holding my breath, I sent it on in to the person whose eye I hoped to catch. Holly. She came back immediately. She seemed to always be online, with some casual praise and the curly brace smiley face. I was pleased, but not entirely. A day before, I'd sent her a picture of my new running shoes, over which she had effusive excitement. I figured maybe I wasn't looking as good as I thought. So I quickly changed the topic to ask her about something else, pushing the edge of my photo and chat up and above the phone screen and out of view. Swing and a miss. That day, I begged off playing games with the lads and took my new running shoes and disappointingly still old body out for a grueling tempo run. Over the next couple months, that peak of optimism from mid-February was foretelling a decline. I spent my time on the app, chatting with Holly whenever I wasn't at school, out running, or asleep. I would try to make a game or two when I could, but Holly's messages were constant, and they threw me off my game. It was like she could tell the second I logged in, and it bothered her that I was spending free time not talking to her or working on fitness. See, she was still really pushing me to run. In spite of my trying to sidestep the photo and her lackluster response, she constantly asked me to send more, and her comments followed. While not out and out mean, the comments withheld anything beyond urging me to do more, run longer, faster, and hit the resistance bands after each run too. One day, she floated to me the idea that she could take a look at my diet to, as she put it, help you get where you want to be. Greedy for her praise, I wrote down a week's worth of the stuff I'd been eating. I'd spent a little time in online forums and pinged Vihan about food before. This resulted in a very bro diet of eggs, oats, chicken, tuna, broccoli. I felt pretty optimistic when I sent the completed week of eating to her that she'd be impressed. She popped back up again right away, already responding. How did she read through all of that so fast? Worse, her response was again nice, but disappointed. Well, I can see why you're having trouble, with the curly brace smiley face. To her practiced eye, my food intake was way off, but lucky me, she would help me get where I needed to go. Her advice included downloading another app that let you log food and weigh-ins. As soon as I had it downloaded and set up, I got a notification that she had begun following me on there too. At her urging, logging everything I ate and daily weigh-ins became the norm. The fun I'd had on the fitness app was gone. Sure, I was earning new levels and achievements all the time, but even though she'd started following me by liking all of my achievements and logged workouts, now she started to subtly insult them. One of the messages I remember was about how the app's projected calorie burn was way off. When I pushed back, she was quick to put her spin on it. Looking back, that's something I noticed about Holly. She was never straight up mean. If she ever started sounding like a mean girl, a moment later there was always some course correction. Suddenly it would be about how concerned she was and how badly she wanted to help. She took over planning my food for me, promising that it was temporary, a jump start that would help me finally lose the last bit of weight holding me back. This was something she was only too happy to do for me because Holly cared so deeply about my success. Eggs became egg whites, strictly measured by tablespoon. Chicken, breast meat only, was in similar strict portions. Eating was restricted to 6 hours a day only, a method guaranteed to address my body's hunger cycles and make it easier and easier for me to go without food. As Holly put it, you just get used to all that stuff we don't need. We just eat out of boredom like cows, too dumb to stop grazing. Lol. At this point, Holly was one of the only people I talked to, and certainly the only one I talked to about my weight. It had started out in a bit of embarrassment, not being able to button my jeans, but it seemed like the more I focused on it, the more I worked on it, the bigger the problem became, until I was scared to bring it up with anybody except her, even as speaking to her made me feel miserable. Her new calorie restriction diet was no exception to this. 2 weeks following it, and I felt like I was dying. I was faint on my runs. I'd think about cutting them short, but then feel guilty about how I'd let myself get this way. Guilty about letting Holly down after all the work she'd done, trying to help me. so I'd push on through the spins, even if I had pulled away from my friends. My friends were real ones. Vihan had been DMing me more and more, and I took a rare moment to log into Ventrilo while I ate my sad dinner. My stomach was so acid-burny I didn't even want it. It was 4 ounces of cod and half a bag of frozen broccoli. It felt like I was eating sand. Vihan got right to the point. "What's going on with you?" The general concern in his voice broke through. While Holly was a hell of an actress, there's no faking the sadness of someone who actually gives a crap about you. I realized I couldn't find the words to tell him right away, because I had been ignoring feeling bad for so long. It took me a minute to access it, but I told him everything. A weight lifted, the weight I'd needed to lose, as it turns out. When I got to the bit about my last weigh-in, Vihan was horrified. No otter mode jokes, he read me the riot act. I had been so focused on numbers go down, I had completely forgotten that they correlated to me physically. I stood slowly, the meager dinner doing little to alleviate the static and stars I'd been seeing every time I moved too fast. Like a rim shot meant to embarrass a bad stand-up act. My sweatpants, once tight enough I'd had to wear them under my gut to get them to fit, fell right off. I cut all contact with Holly then and there. I just totally severed. I blocked her on all the apps, and I trashed the calorie counting one for good measure. What I'd never realized was that she'd used my fitness app name and email, both of which were public. The early days of the app were threadbare on privacy settings, to find my gamer tag. This was a discovery I made the next day, when I logged in and a new account, Salt Starfish, had messaged me. It only took one line, and I knew it was her. I didn't read the rest, but as I moved to block her, some phrases stung like salt. "Give up so easily," was one. "Never get where you wanted to be," was another. And "really thought more of you than this. Just concerned about you." And of course, the curly brace smile. That curly brace emoji gives me the creeps even now. Vihan was the one who, figuring people reuse account names, finally found Holly's other social media. Except here, she wasn't named Holly, but, of course, Sarah, as in Sarah Connor. She ran a pro-ana-blog on another microblogging site. To this day, I don't know if she was trying to kill me, or from her revealed other interests, was genuinely trying to help me. She'd sunk her claws into me so deeply and quickly, frankly, I'm too afraid to contact her and ask even now. Vihan got me back on the road to recovery. Eating 2,500 calories a day, nearly triple what Holly or Sarah or whatever had me on. That helped. Thankfully, my parents never got concerned. Having watched my brother go from pudgy to lanky almost overnight, they'd assumed the same thing was happening with me and my rapid weight loss. I didn't tell them. I didn't want to worry them into thinking I had a disorder. Oh, I had one, but it wasn't eating. It was a girl with a curly smile and big, innocent, who me doe eyes. What's the point of telling my parents? It wouldn't have done any good. I don't think they have rehab for people who make the mistake of trusting the wrong girl. No pun intended, but what a heavy topic. Just keep your friends close out there, your real ones, and don't get caught up. As before, feel free to use any or a combination of the like, comment, subscribe, and notification features as you see fit. At any rate, thanks for calling. I gotta go. But until next time, stay safe, stranger.